everyone, thank you for joining me today. I'm just picking up from where I shared my quick mini tutorial, and this is where we ended. The reason why we ended here is because I want to do my coloring, otherwise the ink's going to pick up where this bumps out. So we're going to get that done, and then we'll finish going through our next steps for gluing. So as I did for my pull tab or my spinning circle, I am going to just draw in my pencil lines with a light gray pen. My reason for doing this is the ink tends to blend out the pencil, and then it's hard to see where the lines were. I'll be using my acrylographs over top of the stamp ink, so you won't really see the pencil marks or anything. Or sorry, the gray pen. So today I am using my Tim Holtz Ranger Distress Oxide ink. I'm using the oxide since it's a little easier to get on larger surfaces. I'm using the tumbled glass and the faded jeans, and I'll be blending them together to kind of give a galaxy effect, but for the ocean. Okay, so back and forth blending the lighter back into the dark, and then I would dab off the darker ink just so that it wouldn't make an obvious circle when I stamped it down. So getting rid of most of that ink makes for a smoother blend. And then I just use this piece of paper to keep all the ink on this side, and of course my paper underneath. Okay, so now we can go back in here, set up my August, see where I want that. Let's see if the glue is still going to work. Now I do want to get some glue where that tab is, just so that it doesn't stand out too badly or too obviously. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take actual adhesive, not just, and this is temporary adhesive or removable adhesive. Just remember that it's not, you don't want to glue this down because then it won't work. It's just temporary adhesive. What I'm working on now is full-on adhesive. And there we have the spin. So now what we're going to do is we're going to glue down portions of this page. We want to be careful where we glue because we don't want to glue to the point where our mechanism doesn't work anymore. I'm going to put a glue just on the edges of the circle. I'm going to put glue at the top of the page as well. And again, if you used removable glue, just make sure you've taken all of it off. Just so that you don't want to run into problems later on. And there is our spin tab. So now I am going to finish off decorating, and I'm going to hand you over to the voiceover. So as you can tell, this is a pretty lengthy video. There were many layouts that required a lot of effort. For example, creating this stamp ink background and doing all the blending. And then I was painting my sharks. I initially started out using acrylographs, which are from Archer and Olive. I'll link them down below. But it ended up taking so long and I was running out of patience. So I just grabbed my gouache paints and I started painting the colors on the shark. I did have to go over a number of times, especially for the white, just to get the opacity that I wanted. And so that does take a little bit longer. But again, I tried speeding up the video and cutting out a lot of the repeat techniques that I used and steps that I used. So I thank you in advance for your patience today. Now for supplies, I used quite a bit, as you can see throughout the video, and I've linked them all down below so that you can go check those out. But definitely my gouache, this is from Artex. I bought it off of Amazon. It's not the best quality gouache paint, but it works and it's easy to use. I'm using my Archer and Olive B5 dark red notebook. So that's the only thing I wanted to point out. If you're trying to recreate this in your A5 notebook, it'll be on a smaller scale. I'm lucky enough to have a lot of space. And so I was able to create the space. And that's another reason why I didn't include the measurements, because if you're doing this in an A5, the measurements will be completely off. So I'm just going in and adding some more detail to my shark, just with a black fine liner pen. It's 0.01 size, or sorry, 01 size. And this is a stencil from Ranger ink. Again, it's linked down below. And I wanted to add some of the dots to kind of give it that underwater effect with bubbles and whatnot. And I also ended up grabbing a stamp set with some bubbles. You don't need the stamp set. This was just to save some time, but you can also just draw in the bubbles like I do here. And I ended up going in with a white acrylograph to draw in some white bubbles as well. I initially tried using a jelly roll, but it wasn't showing up as well as I wanted. So I went back in over top of it with an acrylograph. So this is my dashboard for August. Be messy and complicated and afraid and show up anyways. This is a quote by Glennon Doyle Melton, and I thought it was really appropriate for where I'm at right now. And so I wanted to add that to my journal. This dashboard is available as a free download for my subscribers at the beginning of every month. And I send this out as a blank dashboard so that you're able to color it in and add your own colors. The next layout is my calendar page. I'm using a technique called masking. I am using the sticky notes to mask off areas that I don't want the color in. I'm just being frugal, using the same sticky notes and doing it section by section. You could also just add all the sticky notes, which you actually see me do later in the video. But I just go in and I add the color. Now, when using this blending technique, I find that pencil lines tend to disappear. So in order to remember where I wanted my sketches, I used a very light gray pen just to go over the lines so that I could see them after the fact and then go in and paint like you see me do now. I'm calling this my dolphin shark. For whatever reason, I was really struggling getting it to look like a shark and not a dolphin. So I do apologize for that. And I also actually struggled getting the white opaque enough. But in the end, I just needed to move on, and that was it. So I think I cut out some of it, but I keep going back in and adding white throughout the video. So I thought it'd be fun to add brown paper bag as sand at the bottom of my pages. Not all my pages have it, just some do. And I do end up going in and drawing some starfish and some shells on the sand as well. So a little acrylograph 101. I struggled with using my coral acrylograph, not because there was anything wrong with it, but mostly because the last time I used it, I didn't clean it properly, so I didn't wash out the nibs. I rarely wash out the nibs, which is bad. But when I do run into issues, I just take out the nib, I rinse it out, I make sure all the color comes out and there are no gloppy bits sitting at the tip of the nib, and then reactivate, and it tends to work, not a problem. So again, I'm just going in with different pens to add some more detail and more interesting aspects to the pictures. Namely, I added brown dots to the sand and just shadowing to the starfish and the shells, and then the lettering as well. This is my first time doing the white on black, and I actually really liked it. I thought it worked really well for this layout. At first I used a jelly roll and it wasn't vibrant enough for me, so I just went in with an acrylograph over top of it, and that ended up looking way better and popping off the page a lot better. So these pages are my habit trackers and my notes pages. I use the same inking technique that you've seen on previous layouts, and then I ended up outlining my shark with a white acrylograph, and then I go in with my gouache paint and paint white onto the shark. I just wanted a clearer outline of where my shark was so that I could see it a bit clearer than with paint and trying to line up my paintbrush and sticking my head in front of the camera. So for my masking technique here, I cut out a circle roughly the shape, the size I wanted, that fit with my habit tracker, and I just used that and some repositionable glue. I used a Tombow glue tape, and I just stuck that down and was able to mask around it and stamp around it. So this habit tracker circle is from Erin Floto Designs. This is such a great little stencil. It's my first time using it, so I'm super excited. Quick tip though, tape it down with washi tape and then draw it in. I didn't, I held it, my arm got tired. And only while editing the video did I realize I could probably just have taped it down with some washi tape. And then I'm using my white acrylograph just to do some faux calligraphy. I do the general outline and then go back in and add weight to where the letters need weights, which is on the downstrokes. I decided not to use 2-page brain dump pages anymore. They were going to waste, to be honest. So I'm trying to see if using only one notes page will work out better for me. And then I didn't want to have to write on the ink, so I only took my ink blending halfway across the page, leaving some white space for the notes. This is definitely one of my more creative layouts and definitely speaks to my old way of creative bullet journaling, or how I used to creative bullet journal. And it was really nice and it was really fun to get into it again like this and just, create freely. So this page is a little different for me. It is a productivity page, and I'm using the 135 method. I will link it down to where I read about it first, which is my inner creative. And she actually uses the Eisenhower method and the 135 method together. But anyways, the idea behind it is you do one big task, 3 smaller tasks, and then 5 even smaller tasks after that. And the idea is you do it daily. I'm doing it monthly because, laundry and dishes and stuff like that, not really important, or at least there are other more important things that I need to keep track of. And so my idea was to use this as a monthly setup. And so on the left-hand side, where you see me drawing the shark in the middle of the page, I'll be using sticky notes and writing my monthly tasks down on sticky notes. And then I'll be assigning it to the table on the right-hand side. So right now I have it masked off, but you will see when I go in and add the numbers and draw the lines. And so 1 big task, 3 smaller tasks, and then 5 smaller, even smaller tasks. And that's what I'm hoping to accomplish for the month. I do use my Cultivate That What Matters notebook or goal planner. And this is kind of my way of incorporating that goal planner into my bullet journal. Currently, they both exist independently, and I kind of wanted to do something to be better about incorporating those goals and those habits into my bullet journal. And so instead of being left with the blank page where the sticky notes were, I thought it would be fun to kind of have the shark there and just have a bit of that more creative outlet. If my planning style looks a bit chaotic compared to some of my other counterparts, I do apologize. I don't want to say it is chaotic. It's just I tend to go back and forth a lot while I wait for stuff to dry, or I get a new idea as I'm planning and then I want to incorporate that. And then of course I speed everything up so that you don't have to watch hours and hours and hours of me playing in my bullet journal. And so I do apologize if it looks chaotic. I'm still in the process of figuring out what works and what doesn't. So let me know down below things that you like to see in videos and things that might irritate the daylights out of you. And I can take that and be better. So I appreciate that and thank you in advance. And so this is the table I was talking about where I will be putting my sticky notes in priority order for the month. And of course, knowing me, I will replace those tasks and maybe just try and get ahead of some things. So this final page is my weekly layout. I'm actually again doing something different this month, and that'll be incorporating a memory keeping aspect. I had a couple people ask about it, so I thought it would be fun to bring it back. I used to do it in my bullet journal back in the day, and now with the extra space, I figured why not give it a try? So again, I have my Alistair method on the right-hand page. I have my event boxes, and then on the left-hand side is where I'm going to have a spot for a picture, and then I have written out documented, which is going to be where I do my journaling. That little dotted box at the bottom, I was maybe going to add a quote as well, which I thought would be fun. And so I thought that this looked kind of plain compared to the rest of the layouts. And so I actually went in with my ink and made it more fun and more exciting. And I'm really glad I did, because it really balances out with the rest of the layouts and it really does look fun. I just had to go in and redo the borders since the ink kind of made the black borders a bit more dull. And there I'm using my masking technique again, the same sticky notes I'd used before. I just cut them down to size to cover my boxes. And that is my August plan with me. Make sure to follow me on Instagram so that you can see how that memory keeping aspect works out. These stickers are available for free download to my email subscribers, but I will also have them up in my shop where you can purchase them, and then I'll mail them out to you so you'll get physical copies. But thank you so much for your time today, and I hope you enjoy the flip through.